3 days ago, the blood moon eclipse removed something from your life. Some of you already know what it was. Some of you felt it leave but cannot name it yet. And some of you woke up on March 4th and something was just different. Quieter, lighter, or heavier in a way you did not expect. I asked you to come back to the last video and tell me one word. Lighter, grieving, or confused. And what happened in the comments was remarkable. One person wrote just the word lighter with no explanation. Another said grieving, but it feels clean. Someone else described waking up confused but strangely calm, like a room had been rearranged while they were sleeping. The same 3 words over and over from people who have never spoken to each other. That is not coincidence. That is a collective body processing the same event and arriving at the same limited vocabulary to describe it. Because some experiences are too precise for elaborate language, one word is enough when the word is honest. I am telling you this because what happens this week is directly connected to what left during the eclipse. The sky is not pausing, it is accelerating. Between March 6th and March 10th, 5 major transits land in sequence, and every single one of them is building the structure that will fill the space the eclipse just cleared. Let me be specific about what is coming and why the order matters. On March 6th, Venus leaves Pisces and enters Aries. On March 7th, two things happen within the same hour. Venus conjuncts Neptune at 1 degree Aries, and the Sun meets Mercury retrograde at 16 degrees Pisces, in what astrologers call a Cazimi. The moment when Mercury sits so close to the Sun that it is briefly purified by its light. On March 8th, Venus conjuncts Saturn at 2 degrees Aries. And on March 10th, Jupiter stations direct in Cancer after being retrograde since November of last year. 5 events in 5 days. That is not a normal week. That is a corridor. I want to walk you through each of these in order because there is a logic to the sequence that most forecasts will miss if they treat these transits as separate events. They are not separate. They are chapters of the same conversation. Venus entering Aries on March 6th is the first major ingress since the eclipse. Venus has been in Pisces, the sign of her exaltation, for weeks. In Pisces, Venus loves without conditions, values beauty over function, and feels everything without filtering it. That is beautiful, but it is also blinding. You have been feeling more than you have been deciding. Compassion has been easier than clarity. Tenderness has been more available than truth. When Venus crosses into Aries, the filter changes. Aries does not feel first. Aries decides first. Venus in Aries does not ask, what do I feel about this person, this situation, this dynamic? Venus in Aries asks, what do I want? And after weeks of eclipse processing where your job was to release, surrender, and receive, this is the first moment where the sky hands you back your initiative. You are allowed to want again. You are allowed to choose. But here is where this week gets complex. Venus does not get a clean entrance. Within 24 hours of entering Aries, she meets Neptune. Venus conjunct Neptune at 1 degree Aries on March 7th. Neptune has been in Aries for less than 6 weeks. It will stay for 13 years, and the first planet to come visit it in its new home is the planet of love, beauty, and value. Think about what that means. Neptune in Aries is the dream of who you could become. Venus arriving says your desires are now involved in that dream. What you love, what you value, what you find beautiful is about to be filtered through the most imaginative, boundary-dissolving energy in the zodiac. For some of you, this will feel like falling in love with a possibility, a version of your life that does not exist yet, but suddenly feels real enough to reach for. For others, it will feel like confusion dressed as clarity. Neptune promises everything and guarantees nothing. The vision is real, the timeline is not. Here is what I want you to hear. Venus conjunct Neptune is not a day to make permanent decisions about relationships or money. It is a day to let yourself see what you truly desire without immediately building a plan around it. The desire is data. Act on it later. And the reason I say later is because of what happens on the same day. March 7th is also the Mercury Cazimi. The Sun meets Mercury retrograde at 16 degrees Pisces. A Cazimi is the astronomical moment when Mercury passes directly between the Earth and the Sun, so close to the Sun that it becomes invisible, consumed by light. In traditional astrology, a planet in Cazimi is purified, strengthened, given a direct audience with the king. Mercury has been retrograde in Pisces since February 26th. That means your thinking has been foggy, your communication has been unreliable, and the past has been louder than the present. Old conversations resurfacing, old feelings replaying, decisions that seemed clear becoming muddy. That is Mercury retrograde in Pisces, the sign where Mercury is weakest, meeting the transit, where Mercury moves backward. It has been difficult. One of you wrote in the Eclipse video comments that you could not form a single clear thought for days. Another said every text message they sent came out wrong. Someone described trying to make a simple decision and staring at the wall for 20 minutes. That is not personal failure. That is Mercury retrograde in the sign of its detriment, doing exactly what it does. The Cazimi on March 7th is the turning point. Not the end of retrograde. That does not come until March 20th. But the midpoint. The moment of clarity inside the fog. Think of it as a single clear breath in the middle of a storm. For a few hours on March 7th, something you have been struggling to understand will suddenly make sense. A thought will land that cuts through the confusion. A conversation will produce unexpected honesty. A memory from the retrograde period will click into place. Write it down. Whatever becomes clear on March 7th, do not trust your memory to hold it. Mercury is still retrograde. The fog will return by March 8th. But the clarity you receive during the Cazimi is real, and it will matter when Mercury finally goes direct on the 20th. Then March 8th. Venus conjuncts Saturn at 2 degrees Aries. If Venus conjunct Neptune was the dream, Venus conjunct Saturn is the audit. Saturn does not care what you desire. Saturn cares what you are willing to build. Saturn cares what you are willing to commit to, yes, sacrifice for, and maintain when the inspiration fades and the daily work begins. This is the transit that separates the visions that matter from the fantasies that do not. On March 7th, Neptune showed you what you want. On March 8th, Saturn asks, "Are you serious?" And the answer is not always yes. Some of what Neptune reveals will not survive Saturn's question. That is not failure. That is filtration. The dreams that remain after Saturn tests them are the ones worth your time. There is something important about the fact that both of these conjunctions happen at the very beginning of Aries, within 2 degrees of where Saturn and Neptune made their historic conjunction on February 20th. Venus is literally walking across the ground zero of the most significant alignment of the decade. She is touching the same point where structure met imagination 6 weeks ago. Whatever you are feeling about love, relationships, self-worth, or desire this week is not random. It is connected to the restructuring that began when Saturn and Neptune merged. You are not just having feelings. You are integrating the new foundation. And then, March 10th, Jupiter stations direct at 15 degrees Cancer. Jupiter has been retrograde since November 11th of last year. 4 months of inward expansion. 4 months of the planet of growth, optimism, and opportunity turned inward, asking you to redefine what abundance means before it gives you more of it. In Cancer, Jupiter's sign of exaltation, that question has been specifically about home, family, emotional security, and belonging. Do you feel rich in the ways that actually matter? Not your bank account, though that can be part of it, but the richness of your relationships. The depth of your belonging, the warmth of your inner world. When Jupiter stations direct, the answers you found during the retrograde begin to materialize externally. Opportunity